This black metal item is called the Porta Wrap 3, and it's a friction-saving device. And the idea is, as the piece is being cut, there's a ground person on the ground operating the rope. There's two ways that this can go. The first way is called letting the load run, meaning as that piece is cut, it falls free from the tree, and it's going to put a lot of tension on the rope. The tension is going to be taken up as the rope wraps around the shaft, but as the piece falls, the ground person is able to control how much friction is distributed to the shaft by holding onto the rope. That's the first way. It's called letting the load run. The second way to employ the use of the Porta Wrap 3 is to tie the load off. Why would you want to tie a load off as opposed to letting it run? If you tie the load off, it's going to put more friction, more heat into your friction device. It's going to put more tension, stress onto your rope. Well, maybe the situation dictates that once the piece is cut, you don't want it to fall any lower than it already has to. Perhaps you're over a power line or a greenhouse or an expensive piece of statuary or something like that. The Porta Wrap gives you the versatility to either let the load run or to catch the load as it falls. So what we have here is the Porta Wrap 3 is tied off to the trunk of the tree, and we have our rigging rope running through the pulley and attached to the piece that we're lowering with a clove hitch tied off with two half hitches. I'm going to simulate the role of the ground worker. The climber has tied off the limb that he's going to lower, but before he cuts, we have to rig up the friction device. So as the ground worker, I take the rope, I form a bite in the rope, I run it through the small eye of the friction device around the post, and in this example I'm going to take 3 wraps around the shaft. 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to tie it off just like I'm tying off a boat. For backup, I can tie it off a second time. 3 wraps on the Porta Wrap tied off. This load is ready to be cut by the climber, and when the limb falls free of the trunk, it'll be caught by the friction device and it will not lower any more than the stretch in the rope. Transferring from the model on the ground to the actual real-life situation, the first thing that we're looking at here is our anchor rope and how I've tied a cow hitch. I haven't gone with a timber hitch. I've been able to do that because I have enough rope to wrap around the circumference of the tree and bring my rope back and terminate it. I have made a slight modification though. In a normal setting, the Porta Wrap 3 is tied close. It's tied basically right up to the trunk of the tree. In this case, because the tree is about 5 feet away from the edge of the roof and the ground people are going to be working on the roof, I left a tail on the Porta Wrap 3. And I left my tail long. So in order to take up some of that length, I tied a figure of 8 knot, and I've run a double locking carabiner through the end of the figure 8 knot into the large eye of the friction device, and then I tied off the rest of the tail. So this friction device is set up. All we need now is for the climber to get in the tree, rig the pulley, tie off the load, the ground person can run the rope through the friction device, and we can start lowering.